So in a dental office, we take x-rays on nearly every patient, right? And to be clear, one thing off the top, we're not here to discuss whether the amount of radiation in x-rays will hurt you in some way.
We don't know.
I'm not a clinician, but billing them is sometimes a little bit confusing, honestly. Like specifically the bundling, the denials, because especially like when you are taking multiple images on the same date of service, the processing can get a little wonky.
Yeah. If the sum of those x-rays equal more than the FMX fee for an insurance carrier, most insurances will treat multiple images as an FMX on their end, even when you didn't bill it that way. Obviously, it's subject to the processing policy and frequency limits that come with the FMX if they do decide to bundle it and process it that way.
Yeah, and like fees are annoying. I get it. Like really genuinely, it feels like this should be a little more straightforward. But frequency limitations can actually make it very complicated and a little bit difficult if it's not approached correctly to collect on those images, which you absolutely should be and need to be doing. So that's when like a helpful, diagnostically necessary FMX turns into a denied claim or a surprise patient balance.
So today we're going to go ahead and unpack how dental x-rays get submitted and processed, how carriers bundle them, and how to bill them strategically, but how you really shouldn't even have to.
Yeah, so again, let's discuss how dental x-rays are handled, specifically FMX versus individual like codes, and how understanding carrier processing logic can actually help you collect on those x-rays instead of falling into a trap of adjustments and wasted resources.
Welcome to the Truth Decay Podcast, talking dollars and cents with Sara Baker and LaRae McMullen.
So let's define the x-ray landscape first, right? Like we pretty much all know this, right? If you're listening to this, you're probably in dentistry, but just for the sake of setting the scene, a full mouth series, an FMX, is billed as a D0210, and that's your comprehensive 18 image intraoral series. So typically, it is 4 bitewings and 14 additional PAs. And the purpose of it is to capture crowns, roots, and bone, just like the whole mouth and individual images.
Yeah, but carriers will interpret multiple x-rays, say maybe even just 4 bitewings and 6 PAs as an FMX on adjudication, even if you build bitewings and periapicals separately. This is entirely based on fees. So as we said before, if the total of the sum of the x-rays equals more than the FMX fee, the x-rays are going to be bundled together and processed as an FMX. And again, those are subject to those processing policies like maximum allowed fee and frequency limitations of the FMX. So even if you just took 4 bitewings and 3 PAs, if your submitted fees are too high, you're going to get that processed as an FMX on the AOB.
So to be clear, if you did an FMX, if you did like 18 images with the intention of it being like mounted as an FMX, bill as an FMX. Like you should be doing that. That is going to be subject to processing policies and frequency limitations that you are potentially going to pass along to your patients, right? If the doctor has said, I need an FMX in order to be, diagnostically sure of what's going on in the mouth, like you need to do those and bill it as an FMX and say it with your whole chest and do whatever is necessary with that processing, right? Like most plans limit FMX benefits to once in every 3 to 5 years. So along those same lines, right? If you take, like LaRae said, if you take enough x-rays that the total allowed value, the dollar amount that you're billing exceeds the FMX allowance for that carrier, it's also going to be treated as an FMX.
Yeah.
And like if there has been an FMX taken in the last 3 to 5 years, there's not going to be any pay for those x-rays. So that's like what we're trying to really push here is that like whether it's a real FMX or whether it's x-rays that have been billed and then bundled and changed into an FMX, you are potentially going to be subject to FMX processing policies and fee adjustments. And there's going to be a patient portion due for that, right? Even if you had benefits available in this period for bitewings or PAs or whatever, like the FMX is what you're going to be dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that'll mean a denied or adjusted claim, or even worse, a patient balance that they weren't expecting because the frequency wasn't met. So in our experience in billing, all the clients that we've worked with, I would say that most of the time x-rays are treated like a given payment. There's rarely anything collected or talked about in the beginning with that patient regarding them because most of the time they're covered. So there isn't really a discussion about like what they might have to pay or a patient portion. So this can result in write-offs, and sometimes those write-offs are a matter of an office policy. And honestly, that's a big no-no. You actually do have to collect that from the patient.
The key is if you're billing it with a fee, right? If you are billing in x-rays and you're posting them with a fee.
Yeah.
There's an assumption that you are expecting to collect something. Mm-hmm. Like you cannot bill insurance just to see if they're going to pay something. And if they don't pay it, write it off. Yeah. Like I understand how common that is in offices, but like that is, you can't do that. It's not, not as a matter of policy. And to be clear too, like you're allowed to do kind of one-off things. You're allowed to make, determinations if an individual patient like didn't sign something, or if they really fight and they're like, you didn't tell me this, blah, blah, blah. You as the business owner are allowed to make like a determination to not charge somebody for something. But if it's a matter of policy, if that's what you're doing in your office on a regular basis, if you are billing procedures to insurance to see if they'll pay and then writing it off, that is unethical and it's illegal.
It's literally listed in the ethics clause for the ADA.
The ADA. Yep, exactly.
So in other words, most offices will bill x-rays with a bit of carelessness. And we've seen enough confusion, write-offs, like Sara was just saying, and easily avoidable surprise denials to want to discuss this with you guys today. All the time we'll hear things like, we'll just bill your insurance. We hear that way too much. And we don't hear enough of, here's why you need to have these images taken diagnostically. And you could actually have a patient portion due for that.
Like x-rays are absolutely necessary. I mean, they are, and yet they're not talked about like they're valuable.
Yeah.
And I do also understand that, like, in the olden days when we had to, I say that, but there are some offices that still like develop x-rays. So like, sorry, but I understand that the value has shifted, but like sensors to take the x-rays are expensive and you want to get your money back on these things that you've invested in, right? So like x-rays are valuable. You are paying somebody to take these x-rays to make sure that they are, good and you don't have to retake them, and that you're able as the clinician to have like a good diagnostic piece of documentation to make any kind of treatment decisions. So like these are valuable. And you need to tell patients that they're valuable. And all hope is not lost, quite frankly. Like you can get paid for x-rays when there is no pay. If you want payment, if you don't want payment, bill it with a no pay, zero charge.
Bill it with a zero.
And that's great.
If you're not intending to have payment.
You're golden, pony boy. But like if you do want payment on these things and you see value in it because you're posting a fee, like you can get paid. It's just we need to work on prepping patients better for potential patient portion.
Yeah.
And there are some options for working with insurance carrier policies to try to get payment in an okay way, right? Mm-hmm. So like, for instance, here's kind of a wacky concept that I do understand in a busy office. This is a lot to maybe wrap your head around, but like you can take all the images that you want clinically. Like do it. Take 50 images if you want. But you can control how they're billed so you don't inadvertently trigger an FMX frequency. Like it involves fees and what you intend to charge. And we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, and the codes that we're talking about here are bitewing codes, which, is usually the D0274 for 4 bitewings, and then that D0220, which is the first PA, and the D0230, which is any additional PAs. And then also that Sara had mentioned earlier, D0210, which is that full FMX.
Yes. And there's also the pano. Like if your office has a pano machine, the D0330, a lot of times FMX and pano will share a frequency. So you do need to check on that. But sometimes there is a separate benefit allowed for a pano. So like if you bill basically any other x-ray on the same date of service that you're doing that pano, you can like all but guarantee that the FMX is going to trigger, like if it wasn't already, just based on fees alone. So just, again, if you have a pano machine, you probably see this frequently. So this is something that you should give some thought to about how you are billing it and checking to see if those benefits, overlap or if there are separate ones.
Yeah, because here's the key. Carriers adjudicate based on the total allowed value, not the image count. That's why multiple x-rays can quietly flip into FMX processing.
Absolutely. And like the x-rays may be clinically correct, but billing strategy determines whether you burn FMX frequency or you preserve it, or if you're even allowed to charge for those x-rays, right?
Yeah, and remember, frequency limits and benefit allowances are coverage rules. They don't define clinical necessity. That is important when you're communicating value and letting patients know what they might be paying.
Yeah. So again, this is like really important. It's worth repeating, is that this should not be, they're often treated as just one of those will bill your insurance things and not discussed at all. If there's no pay, that there will be a patient portion. But like, you need to talk about why we do these x-rays. They are valuable. They are, again, you as the practice owner have paid for this equipment and this time to do this. You should not really be doing this for free.
Okay, so besides the usual communication and prep that you need to do with your patients about how they could have a potential patient portion, here is the heart of the potential billing strategy. The issue again is that carriers compare your allowed fee total for all images against the FMX allowance. If it matches or exceeds it, they're going to go ahead and bundle everything as an FMX or a D0210.
Yep. So the goal isn't just to like bill a bunch of codes. If you take those 50 x-rays that I said earlier and you have a charge on every single one of them, right? But you didn't talk to the patient about that value, right? And if you're in network, they are just going to bundle it.
Yeah.
They're going to make the fee for all of those x-rays smoosh down into your FMX fee, right? So you're going to have to adjust a bunch of stuff off. That is not real money that you're posting. It's not real. So like if you feel some type of way about having to adjust those off later, it is not the insurance carrier's fault.
Yeah.
Like you should have known about this
strategic
processing.
Billing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And like, so that's why like you need to be aware of these things if you want to charge, which you should want to charge. So just blindly like posting these things, you're not even getting the allowed amount that you could be getting. And it kind of blows my mind that this isn't thought about more, I think. So like, and there's a way to do this while still engaging in ethical, accurate billing. Yay.
All right, Sara, so let's paint a practical picture then, so everybody understands exactly what we're talking about. Let's say an office is not doing an FMX, okay? They're not doing an FMX. All they're doing is 4 bitewings, 6 PAs. The problem is, if they post the full fee for those procedures, it'll go over the allowed FMX amount of $240, okay? What should they do? How should they code for that?
Love that question. So what they should be doing is if you are taking, in that situation, there's 10 images being taken, right? 4 bitewings, 6 PAs. So the appropriate way to use the codes for that would be D0274. Then the first PA is going to be D0220. And then the 5 additional PAs are each going to be D0230, which is each additional PA, right? So you post all of those. You make sure that you're posting all of them. here's where the strategy comes in, the strategery. What you do is you post up to, if you know that your FMX contracted FMX fee, right? And like, again, pause. That's if you're doing, if you're contracted. If you're not contracted, this might be a situation where you do a pre-estimate maybe to find out what the allowed fee is for, because you can't know really otherwise.
You're not privy to that.
So it's really important that you know, because it's a numbers game. You want to make sure that you're billing below that FMX fee so it doesn't trigger. And so you bill the fee for the FMX, bill up to, and in your hypothetical, the total fee was $240 dollars for an FMX. Just make sure that everything is below $240. Just make sure of that, right? And like, you can stretch it out as much as you need to. Once you hit $235, start with 0 charges. Don't charge for those x-rays. So that's the crux of it, right? It's about the value of like the sum of those x-rays. So accurately represent what you posted, you know, but make the fees be below the FMX. And that way, because again, the alternative is, if you go over the FMX, if you kind of carelessly bill, you go over the FMX fee, they're going to bundle those. They're going to make those 10 images into a benefit of 18 images, which is silly, you know?
Yeah.
And like, you are either going to get no payment from the insurance company at all, because potentially you've already used up that FMX fee somewhere in the last 3 to 5 years, or you're going to have to adjust down everything that you posted anyway to the FMX fee. So you're losing that theoretical money, right? Anyway, you couldn't have done it. And like, you are using the patient's benefit of an FMX when they are not getting 18 images, they're getting 10 images
that you might need another time. But it's really good that you kind of pointed out, because in my head I was like, okay, devil's advocate, right? If somebody's listening and they're going, why would I want to post something for 0? You just told me not to do stuff for free. What she did go ahead and go over, but what I want to like re-emphasize is that you are still getting, at least in our scenario, that $240. What Sarah's saying is, if you're in network and you've used the frequency and they're not going to pay for it, you're getting $0.
Yes.
So you might
correct.
be taking off $7 or $10 or $15 or whatever a couple of those PAs are, but you're still getting the $240 versus just willy-nilly billing it all and potentially getting $0.
That's right. And again, like, what happens too is that if you get $0 from the insurance carrier, guess who you're going to have to collect that money from? The patient.
Only if you're out of network though, right?
No, well, because if you're in network, they will typically
still allow you to pay.
Portion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, regardless, if you're out of network, you just don't have to write anything off.
Yeah.
So you would be able to charge as much as you wanted, right? If you took 50
But you still want to
images.
let the patient know they're going to have a patient portion.
And that's the issue, right?
Yeah.
Is that it's not treated like it's something that you could potentially owe this. It's treated like, oh, we'll just bill insurance and it's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But then it comes back that, they didn't process it as a 4 bitewings, and then the individual PAs, they bundled it, they processed it as an FMX. They had an FMX last year. Patient portion is whatever, right? Whether it's the full amount that you posted as out of network, or whether it's the amount that you had to adjust it down to for FMX. So now you're going to this patient and you're saying, hey, remember when you were in and we said that we needed x-rays and then we didn't say jack about you potentially needing to pay something? Here's a bill for $240.
Yeah.
It is a really high hill to climb.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to make it that high of a hill. Like, there could have been things done before to either prep the patient or bill more strategically, so you didn't deal with this FMX bundling. But again, it's the carelessness. And we say carelessness. We don't mean that you're being careless. It's just that you've got so many things that you need to deal with, that like, this was something that doesn't sound that important or like that much of a priority. But do we see this a lot? Like, this is so
the thing is
common.
too, is a lot of this billing stuff is a little bit like a puzzle. I mean, that's kind of how I say it, right? A little bit.
Totally.
Some of it's super, super easy. Some of it can be like, might just be something that nobody has thought about. Like, they just didn't think about that. And there are little nuances with insurance. Like, if you are doing it, you have to send it in if you're in network, but you don't have to put a fee on it. So they don't give you those little tidbits. You just learn that by doing it for 20 plus years like we have.
Yeah.
And you kind of learn these little things.
Exactly. Yes.
So, okay, let's move on then. Let's say it's the opposite, because this is something that I see kind of too much, like honestly, way too much. Let's say that you are doing an FMX, but the frequency's already met. Can you then resubmit or even submit initially, if you know that that frequency is met, the claim for less x-rays in order to not have it hit that FMX threshold?
Again, fabulous question, because this is something we get all the time. My answer, and again, just to kind of throw it out there, we are not only are we not clinicians, we're not lawyers either. Yeah. But I will tell you this, as someone that has been doing dental billing for 20 years, my stance is that if you did a procedure and the intention was, in this case, for it to be an FMX, I will not rebill it for you as another thing, right? Like, you did an FMX. You billed as an FMX. Your clinical notes, in theory, say you took an FMX.
Your imaging program says you did an FMX.
It's mounted as the FMX, right? You can't then bill insurance, see what they'll pay, and then when it doesn't pan out for you, say, oh, actually, it wasn't an FMX. Yeah. It was 4 bitewings and whatever. It's not, you can't do it opposite, right? Like, you have to be able to tell the patient, we're billing an FMX because it is diagnostically necessary. Doctor needs this FMX in order to, diagnose and treatment plan you appropriately. It is a valuable service that you're getting. You don't have benefits for this FMX right now. Here is what it's going to cost you, right? Mm-hmm. Or, quite frankly, out the gate, if you know that FMX fee isn't going to be covered, you have the option to either no charge them. If you weren't gonna, if you can do that, you can just take the images and not charge them. Or you can charge lesser fees if you want to. If you know that this isn't going to be covered and you think that the patient could potentially swallow $100 for an FMX versus the $240 in your hypothetical, what's stopping you?
Yeah. Well,
wouldn't you rather
it's just
get $100?
Yeah, it's just important to note that you can't tell insurance, I'm going to charge the patient $50 in hopes, like Sara said, that they're going to pay the $50. And when they don't, you write it off, or you say, oh, never mind, I'll just charge you $20. You can't do that. And I want to let everybody know that we're not just not doing that because we're hoity-toity and like up here on a mountain or whatever. We're doing that to protect your licenses. This is unethical billing, and we do not want to do anything that could possibly jeopardize your license as a doctor and the hard work that you took to get there.
So important. Like, well said. I mean, we're doing this. We're saying this because you may not think of it like it's a big deal. You may think of it like, well, they have the benefits for the bitewings, so just do that. We can't, because you didn't do just bitewings. That's not what this is. You did 18 images that is known in the industry as a full mouth series. And that is why it was billed as a D0210. Yep. And the processing was appropriate, right? Yeah. So the problem is not what was billed. The problem was the system that you have in place for telling the patients why those x-rays were important and valuing and care centering that treatment. It's not the problem is not the code.
Yeah, this is especially effective in network where contracted rates may allow you to maximize the benefit without hitting that FMX bucket. Or sometimes what can happen is that you're taking, say, 8 images, but it gets processed as an FMX, and the patient does have an FMX benefit available. The only problem that we see there is that, it stinks to have the 3 to 5 year frequency for essentially 18 images only used up for just 8 images. It's just super silly.
Yeah. And I mean, like for out of network, if you charge all the x-rays that you took and they bundle and deny, you're going to be allowed to collect that full fee.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because you don't have contractual fees, like get paid. Right. But like, is the patient going to pay? Does that work? Have you set up a situation where the patient values the treatment and is expecting to get a bill for all of those x-rays? Or are you just going to write it off? Because the patient's going to be pissed about it and you know it. And you're either going to write it off or you're going to be super scared to send the statement, and you're not going to send the statement. And then that balance just rots there. Right. If you are in network, you would be subject to that FMX fee, and you're going to adjust it down to the FMX fee anyway. So again, it is not a literal burlap sack with a dollar sign on it. Everything you post is theoretical, based on processing policies and your ability to collect, right? Like, we're just advocating that if you think about this, you could potentially utilize patients' benefits in an ethical, correct way so that their benefits are optimized and surprises are minimized.
Yeah, the major thing that we're trying to communicate is post the codes for the correct x-rays that you did, and only charge for x-rays that you mean to collect on. And if you want to avoid the code charge for D0210 FMX and risk processing it as an FMX, then you need to be mindful of the total sum of charge of the x-rays, not the amount of x-rays, but the total sum of the charge, meaning that they don't go over the cost for an FMX. And also, don't forget that frequency limits also apply to bitewings. It's usually like every 12 months. It could be different depending on the carrier. So those need separate benefit checks too. Again, the name of the game is no, or at least fewer surprises.
Yeah. And like the last thing that I really want to stress here is do not agree to or promise to write off those x-rays.
Yeah.
Like if you are charging for anything and the insurance carrier denies something and there is a patient portion remaining on that EOB, either in network or out of network, you are obligated to collect on that amount that you represented there was a fee. You cannot bill insurance and then when they don't pay, say, just kidding.
Yeah.
We actually didn't mean to collect on this at all. Because the
Yes.
insurance is going to be like, what do you mean?
Yeah. What do you mean just kidding? So in this scenario, like, just to give you guys a little bit of fun ideas, we have a script idea that you could say something along the lines of, doctor needs these images for a full diagnostic picture. And in order to fully evaluate your care, I have checked and your insurance has a frequency limit on x-rays. So here's how we bill it and here's what you might owe. And then give them a really good answer of what it is that you found out when you were doing, the insurance verification.
Like framing the discussion around care and necessity, right? Again, not around whether insurance will pay for it. Like that keeps the patient relationship strong.
Yeah.
Like period, patients need to understand that treatment, in this case, these x-rays, they are valuable, right? I've said valuable 1,000 times. Like they're valuable and they're necessary. And if insurance doesn't pay, you're going to pay, right? Like you pay for valuable things. And so if you are devaluing the treatment that you are doing, why would the patient pay for it?
Yeah.
So LaRae, what are 2 action steps that our listeners can do right now?
Go audit your last 30 x-ray claims. Did any of those get bundled into FMXs unexpectedly? What happened? Did the patient become responsible or did you end up writing it off, and why? If this is an office policy, please rethink that.
Like, please be looking at those write-offs.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Please. And number 2, update your billing workflow to like check allowed totals and frequencies before billing x-rays. Like, include it. I really do think that you would be surprised potentially if you saw how much was written off for x-rays.
Yeah.
Like how often x-rays
how
are
much
written
money
off,
you could have.
Yes, especially in comparison to how much you paid for those sensors and how much you pay for the skilled people in your office to be taking those x-rays and looking at them clinically. Don't write it off.
Yeah.
Like you can get the money. And I think you'd be surprised how much you potentially write off. Like take a look.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Sarah, so what are our final thoughts for today?
Final thoughts. Hopefully, we've taught you guys some stuff, made you look at this a little bit differently. Like, carriers often bundle multiple x-ray codes as an FMX based on allowed fee totals, not just the codes you post.
And billing strategically. So up to but not exceeding that FMX allowance, like Sarah just said. It protects the frequency benefits and maximizes coverage.
3, check frequency limits before billing so you don't waste benefits unnecessarily. Like, it is so frustrating to do, post, and bill 8 images and then have it ding the FMX frequency, even though it is 10 images less than a full mouth set. Like, that's the breaks. Them's the breaks,
The breaks.
So like you've got to proceed with that in mind.
Yeah. And our final thought for the day would be patient communication that is grounded in care rather than coverage prevents surprise balances. And it's just better.
Like, do that all the time.
Yeah.
Literally all the time for everything. If you like what you heard today, and hopefully that was helpful, please consider subscribing on whatever platform you're currently listening to us on or watching us. Hi. You can send us an email at hello@thetruthdecaydepodcast.com or check us out at sddentalsolutions.com. We'd love to answer your questions, address any issues that you have. If you run your adjustment report and you wrote off $50,000 in
x-rays,
in x-rays, which is wouldn't be crazy for some offices. So, like, let me know. I find that interesting.
Let us help you. You can come find us on LinkedIn, both Sarah, myself, and SD Dental Solutions. And we are also on Instagram and Facebook. So come find us.
Thank you guys so much. Bye.
Bye.